generational trauma of the Palestinian people. From the Nakba to today, imagine losing your home, your community, and everything that anchors you to your identity, not just once, but across generations. This is the lived reality of the Palestinian people, a community that has endured decades of displacement, violence, and systemic oppression. In this video, we'll dive into the generational trauma of the Palestinian people, from the Nakba in 1948 to today, exploring the deep psychological scars and the remarkable resilience of a people fighting to preserve their identity and humanity. The Nakba, the start of an ongoing catastrophe. The Nakba, meaning catastrophe in Arabic, marks the forced expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians from their homes in 1948. Entire villages were razed to the ground, and families were torn apart. For those who survived, the trauma wasn't just physical, it was psychological and existential. The psychological toll. Survivors of the Nakba faced not only the loss of their homes, but also the erasure of their history and culture. The trauma of watching loved ones killed or displaced often resulted in post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, characterized by nightmares, anxiety, and a constant sense of fear. Generational impact. Studies in epigenetics suggest that trauma can alter the way genes are expressed, meaning the stress and pain of Nakba survivors can be passed down to their children and grandchildren. For Palestinians, this means that generations who never lived through 1948 still carry the emotional weight of that catastrophe in their identity and psyche, living with continuous trauma. The Nakba wasn't a single event. It was the beginning of a cycle of displacement, violence, and oppression. Refugees were confined to camps, stripped of their right to return home, and subjected to decades of occupation and systemic dehumanization. To this day, Palestinians face the constant threat of violence and displacement with no opportunity to heal. Continuous trauma. Unlike single-event trauma, the Palestinian experience is marked by chronic trauma, where stressors, military occupation, bombings, economic hardship are ongoing. This leaves little room for recovery and instead compounds the psychological damage. Impact on children. In Gaza, where the population is overwhelmingly young, children grow up surrounded by war. Studies show that more than 50% of children in Gaza exhibit PTSD symptoms, including flashbacks, severe anxiety, and emotional withdrawal. Living under blockade, they experience food insecurity, lack of medical care, and the ever-present fear of losing their lives or their loved ones. Family and generational dynamics of trauma. Generational trauma doesn't just exist in memories. It shapes family dynamics and cultural identity. Palestinian parents, often carrying unresolved grief and anger from their own experiences, face immense challenges in raising children under such oppressive conditions. Family systems theory. Families often internalize trauma, leading to cycles of emotional suppression, hypervigilance, or even overprotectiveness. Parents may struggle to shield their children from the same pain they endured, yet the systemic violence surrounding them makes this nearly impossible. Preserving identity through resilience. Despite this, families work tirelessly to pass down their culture, stories, and traditions. For many Palestinians, this act of cultural preservation is an act of resistance, ensuring their history isn't erased despite ongoing attempts to silence them. The mental health crisis today. Today, the Palestinian people live under an apartheid system. Home demolitions, airstrikes, and the expansion of illegal settlements perpetuate the trauma of displacement and violence. For those living under occupation, mental health challenges are often compounded by a lack of resources and support, denied access to care. In Gaza, under blockade for over 16 years, mental health services are limited, leaving the population without the tools to address widespread PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Those in refugee camps face similar barriers, where basic survival often takes precedence over mental health care. Impact of systemic oppression. Beyond physical violence, Palestinians endure systemic humiliation and restrictions on daily life, checkpoints, permit systems, and the denial of basic human rights. These experiences fuel feelings of helplessness, anger, and despair. The role of the international community. This isn't just a Palestinian story, it's a global human rights issue. The international community must recognize its role in perpetuating this trauma through inaction or complicity and work toward advocating for justice and mental health support. Advocating for justice. Supporting human rights initiatives, amplifying Palestinian voices, and holding governments accountable for violations are essential steps toward healing. Mental health support. International aid should prioritize trauma counseling, community therapy programs, and resources for Palestinians living under occupation or in exile. The strength of resilience. Despite decades of suffering, the Palestinian people have shown remarkable resilience. They resist not just through protests, but through their art, music, and storytelling, by holding on to their culture and identity in the face of unimaginable challenges. Cultural healing. Poetry, music, and storytelling have become powerful tools for Palestinians to process trauma and express hope. The simple act of teaching a child about their homeland or cooking traditional food is an act of defiance against erasure. A message of hope. The generational trauma of the Palestinian people is undeniable, but so is their strength. They've endured decades of hardship, and yet their spirit remains unbroken. Their resilience is a testament to the power of hope, community, and the unyielding belief in justice. The trauma of the Palestinian people is a reminder that the fight for justice is far from over. Let us honor their resilience by standing in solidarity, amplifying their voices, and working toward a future where they can live with dignity and peace. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more insights into psychology and mental health.